Yes, my people, welcome back to another episode of Gabe's Takes Daily. As I'm sure you all have seen, Manchester United have sent in an improved £1 million bid for Bryan Mbeumo from Brentford. And look, at the end of the day, it has been a very frustrating transfer window so far. I've spoken time and time again about it. But the reality is, this deal is looking to finally come across the line. Obviously, Brentford looking at Amari Hutchinson as Bryan Mbeumo's replacement. Things finally seem like they're starting to move in the right place. Again, there's a lot of opinions on perhaps Manchester United spending too much on the player. But at the end of the day, Manchester United are in a situation right now where beggars cannot be choosers. And the reality is that's just the market right now. Noni Madueke went for 52. Anthony Elenga went for 55. You're getting a 20 goal scorer in the Premier League. I'm really excited for the signing. Hopefully it finally is enough to get the deal done. So I want to take a look at what Manchester United might look like on the ball and off the ball with Bryan Mbeumo in the lineup. But before we get into it, if you're liking the content, if you could please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, it would be brilliant. Really helps the channel to continue to grow, and I would really appreciate it. So let's look at Manchester United and what they might look like with Bryan Mbeumo on the side. Obviously, we've had conversations. I dropped a video yesterday on what Manchester United could look like come the opening day against Arsenal. In my opinion, it's not an ideal situation. I still think that there are some moves that can be made to improve the starting 11. But let's talk about what United could look like with Bryan Mbeumo on the side and why I think this would probably be the best outfit in regards to what we have right now. I also want to touch on who I think Manchester United should now be looking to bring in after hopefully getting this Bryan Mbeumo deal done. So again, obviously, I've made it very clear that I would like Manchester United to go for a new goalkeeper. But for the sake of the video, we're just going to have Onana in goal. The back three, I think you get a good balance here. I think you get, Lissandro, his ball playing ability, the way he can, play these passes once again into Mainu. He can, play line breaking passes into Cunha. And he also has the ability to really stretch the pitch. So when Lissandro's on the ball, he can obviously play those short passes, but he also has the ability to go long. He also has the ability, if we have a 9 who's looking to stretch, he can play those passes as well. I would say he's pretty comfortable playing any kind of pass, which is a luxury to have for a center half. Obviously, again, then you look at Lenny Euro. I think Lenny Euro is good enough to play. I think his best minutes was the left center half, the way he gets up the pitch, and we'll talk about what that looks like in possession. I want to look right now at Manchester United out of possession. I think Lenny Euro is going to continue to grow. I think he can really, cement that center half spot. I think there are some things he's going to be able to learn from Harry, who's done a really good job playing in the middle of a back three. He had some real good success with England in the middle of a back three. And I think Lenny Euro is going to continue to grow. But again, I think he is, pretty diverse in the fact that he can go out wide. He can play the left side. He can even play the right side. I think Euro, as the season progresses, he's going to be quite comfortable anywhere in the back three, which is obviously very nice to have. And I know there are going to probably be people in the comments who are going to disagree with me on this one. That's completely fine. But for me, just the overall ability to step out into midfield, the physical traits and attributes that Diogo has, again, I think he's pretty comfortable being a natural right back to be able to cover lots of space, to be able to defend lots of zones, especially in my opinion with Ahmad being the ideal right wing back, getting up in the play, acting as a winger. I think Diogo is going to need to, cover a lot of space on his own at times, and I think the physical attributes that he provides, again, in the video I made yesterday, how comfortable he is on both feet, I think it's brilliant. And then you look at the midfield too. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Obviously, I'm going to be completely honest. I want to see Kobe get a lot more minutes than he got last season. I think he's too good to not be playing. I think when it comes to having a midfielder who can drop into these zones when we're looking to build, maybe Ahmad gets higher, Dalot takes the role of a wing back or a fullback. Mainu Kobe can kind of drop into these areas. He can receive, he can get on the ball, and then he can play those passes, those line breaking passes. He can even carry. I think out of all the midfielders that we currently have in the side, he's the best and the most well equipped to do so. The problem, like I mentioned in my video yesterday, is the balance in a Bruno and Kobe midfield. Obviously, Bruno's going to play. He's our best midfielder. He's our captain. But does this duo work? Now, is there potential where, Ruben Amorim looks at it and decides to drop Xerxes, play either Mbeumo or Cunha in the 9, and have Bruno occupy one of the 10 roles? Then you can maybe bring in an Ugarte to play beside Kobe, and it could look like this. In an ideal world, we bring in another number 9, in my opinion, but I'm not exactly sure if that's going to happen. For me, the main focus right now is to bring in another center midfielder, which I want to talk about. But let's just say for now, Ugarte will go back to the bench. Let's just say for now, this is what we're working with. A player I would love Manchester United to bring in potentially. Apparently, this is a club that is interested in Alejandro Garnacho. I would love if Manchester United tested the waters for Amadou Onana. I think this is a great profile to have, a profile that we're actually lacking. Someone who can get on the ball and play. I think Amadou Onana's ability to play football, to get on the ball, to string passes together, I think it's extremely underrated. But he can also be that anchor, if he's either playing beside Kobe, if he's playing beside Bruno, he can be that anchor. Let's just say it's Bruno and Kobe. We obviously know Bruno likes to get up on the play. Amadou is that midfielder who's going to sit. He's going to protect the back line. And I would love if Manchester United could, potentially do some business there. Obviously, again, reports coming out saying that Aston Villa are interested in Alejandro Garnacho. I would love if Manchester United tested the waters on an Onana, because I personally think that this is a profile that Manchester United are lacking. Not only someone that can defend, somebody who has the ability to pick up the ball in these deeper pockets. I don't necessarily love the idea of Ugarte or Casemiro picking up the ball in deeper zones, which will sometimes force Bruno to go a little bit deeper, which will then leave these spaces vacant, and then there's just too much of a gap. I think there is a desperate need for a midfielder like Onana. There really haven't been many links from anyone credible, from what I've read anyway, that Onana is a potential signing for Manchester United. But I really do think after getting Mbeumo done, their next signing should be a center midfielder. I think this is maybe what we could expect from build-up. Obviously, the wide center half split. You have Dorgu and Ahmad high. I think you drop Kobe into here. We obviously know that Ruben likes to, push one of the center halves into midfield and build up. I'm not exactly sure if he's going to continue with that. I'm interested to see what the shape looks like against Leeds. You have Bruno occupying that more traditional 10 role. And then you have probably Mbeumo higher, ready to, connect with Xerxes or whoever's playing the 9. And then you have Cunha maybe here, ready to connect with Dorgu. If Bruno gets on the ball, we obviously know that Cunha likes to drop into these spaces and kind of be the connector from the midfield to the attack. So I want to talk also about Manchester United in possession with Bryan Mbeumo. So a lot of the top teams in Europe, they're obviously playing with line of 5 when they're in the final third. I was watching a lot of Manchester City in the Club World Cup. They had Doku as the winger and Savinho as the winger, who were always holding width very nice and high. They had Bernardo typically and Gundogan, who were pinning the center halves or the fullbacks. And then they were either leaving Haaland, mostly Haaland, or sometimes Marmoush against the two center halves in the middle. And then they had, typically it was a midfield 2 with, they had either 2 or 3 players ready for those transitions. And I think this can work. I think Lissandro and Dalot's ball playing ability as wide center halves in settled play when United are in the final third, I think this can really, create some problems. I think, these are 2 players who are really comfortable on the ball. Even Lenny's very comfortable on the ball. I think you want to get Bruno a bit more advanced. Thinking in settled possession, it looks something like this, where you have Kobe a little bit deeper, can get more touches on the ball. I like Kobe, getting on the ball a lot more. Bruno still has the ability to stretch, where maybe Xerxes will come in deep here. He'll drag a center half. We know that Xerxes likes to drop into the pockets and receive. He's very much a ball-to-feet player. And then this leaves room for even Bruno to stretch this way. It leaves room for Mbeumo to get in behind. It leaves room for Ahmad to get in behind. So I think this could be a good setup. Again, the worry will always be with this offensive minded of a team is defending the transitions. Do the midfielders have the legs to defend transitions when they lose the ball? That would obviously be a problem. But in any system ever in the history of the sport, there's always going to be things that can be, used against you in terms of, your system. No system's perfect. I think, Manchester United need to really look to be a team that want to get on the ball more, want to create more chances. And I think they may have to sacrifice the, idea that they're going to be super defensive. I think with the signing of Mbeumo potentially, this connection here, him and Ahmad can do really well. I think, you get the ball into Mbeumo. He's very rapid. Again, 20 goals. I think this connection here can be really something that can grow as the season progresses. And I think the fact that you have an Mbeumo, if this deal does get over the line, it takes the burden a little bit off of, a Joshua Zirkzee potentially to score. He won't necessarily need to score as many goals because Mbeumo scored 20 in the league last season. He's obviously someone who likes to get on the ball and he wants to score. Cunha is a little bit more of a facilitator, but he can also, chip in with goals. So I think this is just a really good dynamic. I think if you have Cunha in these pockets here, Dorgu likes to, run in behind. There were a lot of moments in the season last season where Dorgu made some really good, last minute runs around the corner. In this position was typically Garnacho, and Garnacho is not really a pass first player. He's obviously more of a shoot first player. He wants to cut inside and, try and whip, those shots into the far post or beat a keeper far post. Whereas Cunha is more that creative 10. He likes to get on the ball. He does like to, get on the ball and drive forward and try and score goals for himself. But he also likes to create. So I think having two creators, Zirkzee trying to play that role with Mbeumo and Ahmad obviously wanting to score. And then you have Bruno always looking to get him behind. He's obviously creative, but he also likes to get involved in the goals as well. I think, it's not the best, like I said yesterday, but in terms of the reality of the situation, it's what Manchester United are right now. I think if there's two improvements that necessarily need to be made, if it's me, I think you need to go and bring in a defensive midfielder. I think there's going to be a lot of times where, you might play Cunha in the 10 and you might play Bruno as a left attacking mid. And then you have Kobe, which is fine, but I don't necessarily know how much Ruben trusts Ugarte. Obviously, Casemiro's still there, but I want someone with a little bit more pace, a little bit more power, a little bit more legs to kind of cover ground. I would really like to see something like this. Even I think, Kobe beside an Onana in possession, with Onana being able to, essentially be that first midfielder in terms of rest defense. And if there's a, scenario where Manchester United lose the ball, we have, the power of Onana. You have Diogo, you have Lenny, and then you have Lisandro, who's, quite an aggressive center half and hopefully, recovers well from his injury. So he can again be that, center half who likes to step into midfield and kind of cut out those passes before, other teams get a chance to break and counter the other way. I think in an ideal world, you bring in the profile of Onana. If not, you may have to, go with an Ugarte, go with a Casemiro, which, it is what it is. But yeah, I think, this is a very exciting signing. I know there's going to be a lot of people who think, this is Manchester United spending too much money, and that's probably fair. But, with the position that Manchester United are in right now, beggars simply can't be choosers. 15th last season, there is no excuse for Manchester United to do anywhere near what they did last season. You need to bring in players who can score. Manchester United lacked goals last season, so many games where we would create chances and we just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. You go and you sign Matheus Cunha. You go and you sign Bryan Mbeumo. Now, I think the attention needs to shift to a midfielder and a goalkeeper. If there's enough money from sales, I would even like to bring in another number 9. But I want to hear what you guys have to think. Is this a good signing? Is it a good signing for the price? Are you excited at the idea of Bryan Mbeumo starting for Manchester United, hopefully opening day against Arsenal? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Again, we'll be dropping content daily, so appreciate everyone who is watching, who is liking, who's dropping me some comments and subscribing. That's it for this one. We'll talk again soon. Until next time, peace.